Hello everyone, my name is Dave and welcome to your next tutorial on JavaScript. In the past tutorial we were looking at variable scopes. In this tutorial we'll continue to look at variable scopes, and what we're going to look at is called hoisting. It's hoisting in JavaScript. You know the way you hoist a flag, so that's what you should use to remember it. Okay, so here to test it, what we have to do is to declare a variable. Just call yours anything. I'm just going to call mine my var and say the value is the partner.com. That's the website you post your questions in case you have questions about this. And then we declare a function and call it anything function, and then inside that function we document .write and we just write my var. We're going to print this variable inside this function just to show that this variable is available to this function. So right under here we have to call the function. Remember, if you declare a function you have to call it, otherwise it won't run. So first of all I'll comment this out and then run it so that you see that it won't run and nothing happens. Then we have to call it. We have to call this function here for it to run, or even at the top, and then we refresh and it prints this. So the next thing we have to do is to actually show you what hoisting is. Assuming we declare this variable again, inside this function we say var, my var. We're declaring it locally now within the scope of this function, and say my var equals to visit partner.com. Alright, so we have this guy here, and let's document .write again and just add concatenate anything. This is the first declaration. Let me just drag this here so you can see what I'm doing. This is the first declaration, and we concatenate. I taught you this in the first tutorial, so if you understand what I'm trying to do here, I'm just trying to use a sentence here and then concatenate it with a variable, which is what we have here. So what we just basically did here is, first of all, we try to print this my var to see whether it will print anything, and then I'll just concatenate here and say first my var. Okay, so that we know which one is printing. And this first my var, if it works very well, it should print first my var colon devpartner.com, which is what we have here. And then we have declared my var again and given it this value, and this one should print this is the first declaration and my var. Alright, but in JavaScript this wouldn't work exactly like that, because once you declare a variable within a function, what happens is that it hoists the variable. But then let me just show you. Now we have this. Let's run it and see what we can eventually get printed out here and here. So we refresh. Of course I need to come back here and add a br tag just to make it appear on separate lines. So refresh, and what we have is first my var undefined. This guy is undefined. It can't find a value for this guy, but then it prints the second one. This is the first declaration, visit devpartner.com, which is what we have here. So it says this is the first declaration, visit. It now uses this particular one, visit devpartner.com. So as you can see right here, it was the second variable that was printed. But why did this one show undefined? It's because in JavaScript, once you declare a variable in a function like this, what JavaScript basically does is it declares all its variable at the start of the function. So before JavaScript runs this, the parser rewrites this entire function to be something like this. It comes to the top and declares my var, but then it doesn't assign any value to it. So right here, when you now assign a value to it, what it does is basically call the my var it's declared and just assign a value to it. So you see why this is how JavaScript will rewrite this function before it runs it. So when this function is like this, that is why this one is undefined, because there is no value at this point. There is no value attached to this. So JavaScript has hoisted this value to the variable to the top of the function, and then we're trying to use it here, but there's no value attached to it. So but when we try to use it here, we have already assigned the value to it. That's why this one came out clean and this one came out with undefined. So that is variable hosting. But then functions can sometimes be used as variables in JavaScript. So let's see what a hosting for a function could be. I demonstrated that in the past video, but let's do it in a more proper way. So assuming we have a function inside a function, that is a nested function. That is when you have a function inside a function, which is what I want to do now. So we have another function inside this function and call it a second function. So you just call yours anything, and we have this second function. I'm going to do something here and just say that document.write hello world second function. So but then let us try and call this function. We call this function at the top here even before we declare it. So we're calling a function we've not declared, and let's see what will happen, whether this will actually print. And this function here, we are calling it at the bottom. So when the script runs, we need to delete this too. We don't need it. So when the parser runs through this page, what happens is it reads all this, it does nothing, comes here, and all of a sudden it calls this function. So it goes back here to run what is inside this function. So it comes here and sees that there is a that you are calling a function, then it goes to bring out what's inside. So we refresh, and of course it prints hello world second function, because it has hoisted, it has declared this function at the top of here even before you started making a call to the function. It has taken the whole of this guy and put it at the top here. It has hoisted this function. But this is not the only way to declare functions. There's a way you can declare functions another way. So I will show you what happened, but let me just rewrite this function immediately. The way JavaScript will rewrite it before it runs it. It just takes this guy to the top here and calls it at the bottom. So JavaScript will automatically rewrite this function, rearrange it this way before calling it. That's why it was able to work. Alright, so let's get back, because this is a type of function called function declaration. When you declare a function like this, it's called a declaration. But then there is another way to declare a function that you can call function expression. Okay, so in this expression type, what you have is var second function equal to function. So this is the expression form of this function. This is the declaration form, this is the expression form. Then of course we do the same thing inside. We paste this inside. Then we can delete the declaration form, and we call this at the top. So what is happening here is we are calling this function, the expression form of this function, before we declare it. What JavaScript, let's first of all run it and see whether we will see anything. So if okay, we refresh, as you can see there is nothing here, but when we check the inspect element, we see that there is an error. It is not a function because it is not seeing this, because JavaScript rearranges this in such a way, because in such a way that it doesn't get to see this function. This function is declared as a variable. So what JavaScript does is it comes here to declare this variable first, like we saw in the other time with the variable declaration. It declares this variable and it doesn't assign any value to it. Then here you're trying to use it, so it returns an error, undefined error, which is what we're seeing here. So you are using a function, you're trying to use a function or a variable that doesn't have any value in it. Alright, So but if we have this at the bottom like this, and we'll refresh, and guess what, hello world, because right here it has right inside here it has already had the function expression before you are calling it. So this is all about hoisting in JavaScript. Just to clear your doubts, you have function declarations and expressions. So those are the declaration and expression form of functions. Okay, so see you in the next tutorial where we touch one more thing on closures before we just round up this topic. Okay, and don't worry if this thing is a little confusing to you at the beginning. Maybe you're not understanding everything 100%. That's a normal thing. It happens in programming a lot. When you're learning a new thing, you don't get to understand everything once, but when you actually start using it, that's when you really understand how deeply you actually understood these things. Okay, so don't worry, just keep trudging along, just keep following these tutorials. You will eventually get much better at this. Okay, so thank you. See you in the next video tutorial. Don't forget that if you have any questions or you have any issues, you can always come here on devpartner.com and post them. Alright, and also there are some job postings, developer job postings. So as soon as you're good with JavaScript, there is always a job waiting for you. On the website here we have job postings. As you can see, these guys are recruiting, these guys are recruiting, these guys are recruiting, and we try to keep it up to date all the time. So once you learn to code any of these things we've taught, just come here and come to the job section at the bottom here and look for a job. And if you have a job, you can always post them there. So thank you very much. See you in the next video tutorial.